Hi, hope you're doing well. Let's get started. Can you please explain the default loading strategy of Angular? Yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, so by default, Angular modules are loaded eagerly. So by this, what I mean is that as soon as we hit the application URL and the application loads, so all the ng modules that is used in our application, so that gets loaded. So whether it is required or not, that all the modules would be loaded. So that is the default loading strategy in Angular. Okay. So do you think that this following this eagerly loaded pattern would be good enough for a good application, for a larger application? Okay, so no, for larger application, when there are many routes and there are many modules and there are many child modules, so then always it is considered in Angular also provide different other types of loading apart from this eagerly loading. The first one we can say about when there are many routes and it's a large application, then always we can use a lazy loading concept. By lazy loading, what I mean is that whenever the user wants to visit one particular page, so if I have a school application, and if the teacher wants to view the students list, so then the teacher has to go to the students page. So that is only when it is required. So during that time we can actually lazy load that particular students module, and by this way actually when the initial application load, we can actually improve the performance. So we can implement the lazy loading concept. And there might be other scenarios where actually few of the data that needs to be populated while the application loads. So for that actually we can use the another loading strategy that Angular provides, that is the preloading strategy. We can load the content we can actually prefetch the content before the application loads. So those by using these two concepts like preloading and the lazy loading, we can improve the performance of our application by lots. Okay, that's great. So can you please explain how eagerly loaded module, that is which is the default behavior in Angular, how it works in your current application that you are showing the screen? Yeah, sure. So as you can see here, I have an app component. In this app component HTML. I am having 3 buttons. So one button will be redirecting to the teacher route, and in the second button it will be redirecting to the student route, and I am having a third button which will be redirecting to the home page. So to redirect this route, I am using the router link attribute, and I am creating a separate app routing module. In the app routing module, what I am doing is I am configuring the parts of the route that I have mentioned before. So I am having a path for the student which is actually loading the student component. I am also similarly I am having a teacher component, teacher path. It will be loading the teacher component, and in the teacher component and student component I am actually console student component is called or not. So I am opening the console, and this is an eagerly loaded module example, and this app routing module I will be calling in the app module. In the app module you can see app routing module is called. So now once the user is hitting the teacher button, so the teacher component is called, and once the user clicks on the student component is called, and home, it will be redirecting to the home. So why we are calling it as eagerly loaded module is because in the app module itself actually we are declaring all the components. So this will be loaded when the application loads for the first time, when the app module is bootstrapped. So it, along with the app components, all the declarations whatever is mentioned over there, so that also gets loaded. So student component and teacher component, everything will be loaded on the initial load itself. So that is how eagerly loaded module works in Angular. Okay, so can you please explain what is lazy loaded module and how we will be implementing lazy loaded module? Okay, so for implementing lazy loaded feature in Angular, So we can actually remove it from the app component. So when the app module is getting bootstrapped, it will be actually bootstrapping only the required app component and hello component in this case. So apart from that, we can remove all the other things. So then we have the app routing module as it is. Then in the app routing module, so we will not be configuring it as a component. So rather than we will be providing the load children property in Angular, which will be written inside like an arrow function. So it will be written inside an arrow function. So we need to import the module that we require, right? So for that we will be actually putting so first is the student, so it has to go to the student folder and take the student routing module. Okay, so routing student routing dot, that is the module file, right? So we have to refer to that, and then that is like a promise. So dot then, so once it is loaded, then you have to mention it as s dot which is the corresponding module. So in this case actually it is a student routing module. So like this we will be implementing the load children property, right? So this means that that will be loaded only when the user hits the this particular module will be loaded only when the user hits this particular path. Okay, so that is the student path. So here in this case it will be teacher. Okay, and it will be like so it will be okay. So we have implemented this so this components import can be removed. So we have imported the root. So in the student routing module, what we will do is, so we have to configure the path, which so it will be like first it will be an empty path because we have already configured student in the app routing module. So here it will be like a path. So everything is as it is. So student routing module, and we have the path for this one. Similarly, we have this teacher routing module. So here also it has to point it to the teacher component. So teacher component and student component will be loaded only when the user hits this particular paths, student and teacher path, and all this module and all those services. Right now it is a small module, right? But in larger application it will be like there will be services and other components, child components and everything. So it will be for a larger application, this lazy loading feature increases the performance of the application a lot. So now if you hit the teacher component and student component, it has to work the same way. So let it load. Okay, sometimes this tag splits. Okay, so now it is working. So you can see here, right? So it works the same way, okay, as it was working previously for the how it was working for the eagerly loaded module. So in this case the performance will be improved a lot. So right now you would not be able to recognize it because it is a small module and only one component in it. But in an actual scenario, an actual application, there might be many components, many child components. So you would be able to experience the lazy loading feature in Angular. Okay, that's great. Yeah, so then can you please explain what is the real idea behind the preloading modules and how you have implemented preloading in your application? Okay. So preloading feature that is provided by Angular is intended to load component or modules in the background. That means along with the application load, the preloaded the modules would be preloaded, and that will be like it would not be useful for the initial application load, but later on we are sure that other application, the user would be using those data. So that will be like a huge data. So in the background itself that is getting loaded, but it should not affect the application performance as well. So that is the way. So by preloading, what it means is that we can actually wait for the users need not wait for the data to download when they actually activate a particular route, because it might be a huge data or a large data. So along with the initial application load, we will be fetching that data, and as soon as the user hits that particular route, so that data will be visible for the users. So that is the real purpose of preloading. And there is an in Angular router provides a preload all modules. So for all the lazy modules, if we need to enable preloading, then we have to import that preload all modules, and so that will make sure that all the lazy loaded modules would be preloaded along with the application load. Okay, so yeah, that's what I was looking for. So what I will do is I will be wrapping up this particular session for today. So we will be looking into the more advanced concept of how the preloading is implemented, and all this will cover in the other session. So it was great talking to you. All the best.